So, okay. All right, aim assist is like extremely controversial. Okay, and I played console for 20 years, 19 years, 20 years, 21 years, 20-ish years, about 20-ish years. I didn't swap over to PC until I was a junior in college. Senior in college. It was my first time playing PC games. So I played console that whole time. Played Siege back in year one when there was a Pro League. Played Pro League console. Although, to be fair, it was kind of a joke. Anyways, though, I'm going to go over all this with you. But, like, here's the thing. I personally believe that aim assist is good for console. But you should not mix console players and PC players because it can't be balanced. I am totally fine with Little Timmy and Little Jimmy, and also Big Jimmy and Big Timmy coming home from work, getting to play on the couch and have a good time. Nothing wrong with them. They should get to have fun. And honestly, in some ways, I actually kind of started to understand the argument of like the giga hardcore sweat esport gamer kind of like ruining casual experience, right? I don't think it's technically true, but I understand the point that they're trying to make, right? Where like you can't have some things be fun because like, you know, oh, it doesn't work in this format or it doesn't work here. But like there's actually a disconnect. I actually have started to believe that it's more esport versus ranked in like the way the game is played, right? Like there's like the base game and then there's like the way the game the pros play, and it's like light years apart. And it's like that's where the big disconnect is. There's actually not a big disconnect from like a regular ranked player and like a casual player. There isn't a huge one. But the reason that I have my stance on that is I just don't think that an aim assist can ever be balanced, because I played console Siege. There was no aim assist. And the thing that killed the league was mouse and keyboard zimming. And the reason why wasn't because of just aim, which it was, but it wasn't just aim. It was actually the 80-80 strafing on windows and doors. How long it would take to peek out a door really quick and shoot somebody and then go back in was so much faster than on a controller, because you have to cross the center plane of the middle of the stick, right? When you go out for a peek, it's so much longer to do this as opposed to an 80-80 strafe. It took so long that you just lose. You just had such a disadvantage versus them. And so one of two things happens. Aim assist is either super weak and you get shit on by mouse and keyboard players, or it's really strong and you shit on mouse and keyboard players with a literal legal cheat. So the way you make it work is you keep them separate. Console, aim assist pools over here, PC pools with no aim assist over here. Everyone stays happy. It's one of the few things Overwatch has always done really, really well. Overwatch you can play with console friends only in non-ranked game modes, so like quick play, arcade, and custom games. That way you can still play with your friends, but you don't ruin the ranked environment, which is like where your competitive integrity comes in. And that is seriously one of the only things Overwatch has truly ever done right. And you gotta applaud them for it, because games like Apex show you why. So here's Apex. I performed mouse and keyboard controller statistical analysis on 10,000 R5 reloaded players over the last 4 months. Here's what the data says. See comments for source and other details. So I'm going to open this in another tab, and let's see what we got. Average accuracy by input. So this is the average overall of the 10,000. Controller's average accuracy was 33.57, while mouse and keyboard was 25.72. That is a drastic difference. Controller players' average accuracy is 30.5% higher. 1 out of 4 roller players have higher accuracy than 99.93 of mouse and keyboard players. What? I'm sure that I wonder if that gets explained in the comments. That's insane if true. Top 3 controller player accuracy. Evolved Xander, 51.1, overall rank 1 accuracy. SSG Koi, 47.71, overall accuracy rank 2. Winter, 47.02, overall accuracy rank 3. Compared to the top 3 mouse and keyboard players, which is Kazuma, 38.9, and his overall rank 391. What? The number 1 keyboard mouse player, the person who has the best keyboard and mouse aim, in perspective of the rest, is 391. So you have rank 1, 2, 3, and then 4 through 390, and then you have the number 1 mouse and keyboard player.
Months, baby.
Then the number 2 overall mouse and keyboard player has 37.7% accuracy difference, which isn't a big drop from number one. If this saw the same thing up here, 51 was the number one, 47 is number two. That's an average drop off between the number one and number two player. Number two player, 37.7, drops him all the way down to rank 619. Coming down to number three is 36.73. Again, marginal drop from 2 to 3. 2 and 3 in controller was a smaller marginal drop, but either way, still a marginal drop. Drops them all the way down to 902. Average KD by input, controller 1.15. Mouse and keyboard 0.87. Controller players' average KD is 31.5% higher. And then this is, I think, a scatter plot. These are scatter plots, right? Of accuracy versus playtime. Accuracy versus playtime is interesting. But overall, their accuracy is just so much higher. Because blue is controller, red is mouse and keyboard. Obviously, you have people that are down here that are just absolute shitters, comparatively. But oh my god. Wait, look at this guy. Wait, okay, I'm sure the comment explains this one, because this is the rank 1 guy. He barely plays. You know what it probably is? This guy's probably only scrims. And also, like, isn't there like a secondary test Apex like server or something where it's just like 1v1s? And it's like basically like practice like mechanics and stuff like that. This is the test mechanics server. Oh, the R5 is what it's called. Oh, I knew it existed. I didn't know what it was called though. Okay, so this is the test mechanics server. Like, okay, backstory for my non-Apex people. Apex has this secondary server called R5. Didn't know it was called R5. We learned that just now. But basically, it's a place where you can go and like practice mechanics and have like one-on-ones and like stuff like outside of the Apex client, right? Like because like in Apex, you'd have to have a friend to invite to the training range for you to 1v1. This has a way for you to fight more people. It has tournaments too. Didn't know that. And you could fight more people, you know, almost like you could queue up almost a 1v1 game mode in Apex, right? There's actually 2 of them that exist, to my knowledge. Correct me if I'm wrong if you're an Apex professional in this chat and you know the scene better than I do. One is controller aim assist enabled. One of them is controller aim assist disabled. This one I'm assuming is from the controller aim assist enabled. Let's read. So this is the OP comment explaining a little bit more about the data that we see here. Motivated by how tired I am of the aim assist debate, I decided to crunch the numbers from the R5 leaderboard to see what unbiased statistics had to say about input balancing. So for those who don't know, let me put this in Overwatch terms for you. Apex is having this problem where people have just been debating mouse and keyboard versus aim assist for forever. And very slowly, aim assist has taken over and controller has taken over, even the pro scene. But like I think like a mouse and keyboard team won this year, or like came close to winning, or they won like a smaller tournament, like a regional or something. I don't know if it was like the big one. And so people were like, see, mouse and keyboard's fine. But it's almost like the 5v5, 6v6 debate in Overwatch, where it's like everyone's kind of slowly pushing in one way, but it's just like everyone's been arguing the whole time. Everyone's just like, and like going at each other's throats, right? A lot of problems over there. Different problems though. But yeah, basically they've been at it for forever, and people that say mouse and keyboard is underpowered or controller aim assist OP, people just say skill issue, blah, 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 blah. With approximately 10k players analyzed over the 4-month span, this is the largest analysis of this kind and is the best data we have to perform in the analysis we do, as we do not have access to this data for retail Apex. Some interesting findings not shown / discussed in this graph. The top mouse and keyboard players accuracy-wise are at the bottom of the hours played range. As we can see in the graph, as time goes on, there's a very clear regression to the mean for mouse and keyboard players. The top mouse and keyboard players who has at least 100 hours is Future. What are you doing? He played in the last NA PLQ, sure it's a tournament, with 35.46 accuracy. Future's alt account, somebody's alt, that he plays controller on has 38.84% accuracy. So he just has straight up much better accuracy on controller as opposed to mouse and keyboard. Okay. There are only 4 mouse and keyboard players in the top 1,000 for accuracy. So out of 10,000 players they analyzed, 4 out of 1,000 are in the top. The top 4% of mouse and keyboard players' average accuracy is equal to the average accuracy for the entire controller player population. So I have to ask the question for any of my Apex people that know stuff. Can anyone play on the R5 server? Is it invite only? Can anyone play on it? Do you have to be a top player? Can you be like a silver player and get in? Has to be PC. So they have to be a PC, but any player with a PC can get in. Is that true? So that means you can have bronze to masters players playing in it the whole way through, as long as they have a PC. Cool. So the top 4% is equal to the average. Wow. The 10K players are made up of about 6,000 mouse and keyboard players and 4,000 controller players. Okay, so obviously it's not perfect 50-50, and there's more mouse and keyboard players than controller players, but the top 4% is equal to the average of all the controller players. It's kind of nuts. So that means the top 4 players on mouse and keyboard average a 1.15 KD, which is the average for controller. Meanwhile, the average for mouse and keyboard is 0.87. That's wild. Some considerations. While some may argue that these figures do not translate to retail Apex, because R5 player base likely takes the game more seriously, true, I see no reason or evidence from the data that these discrepancies would change at a lower skill levels. In addition, retail Apex has substantially more visual clutter, which disproportionately affects mouse and keyboard. Document here. I don't want to click on that. Shout out to MKOs for creating the leaderboard. Lettuce has made me aware that most of you are likely not familiar with R5 as I am. R5 provides multiple servers to practice abilities for real Apex. Here is a list of the servers to give you an idea of the modes available. Then there's this. As you can see from the maps, the gunfights primarily take place at close to medium range. I'll click on that. I trust that. All right. Servers online. Players online 127. Okay, so these are all the different ones. So NA server, Karma 1v1 multi-map. So it's 1v1s. And World's Edge, Drop Off. I'm sure these are just like different maps they have that are like on different like sites. Like I'm sure like this one's on World's Edge somewhere, and you know what I mean? Like I'm not that familiar to know like where the hell they would hold 1v1s in Apex, to be fair. But this is what it looks like. Okay. In conclusion, it looks like they found a good way to prove that controller is significantly a better input to play on, which is what people have been arguing for a long time in many games, Call of Duty, X-Defiant, you know, Apex. But like, I don't think the console player should be shunned. I don't think you should shun the controller players. It's just a matter of input differentials and like preferences, and I think that's okay. But when you have a competitive FPS game, everybody needs to be on the same thing, like on the same device. It just needs to not be 0.4. So when you say 0.4, 0.4 means like the pull, like the percentage pull of the aim assist. The controller is aiming for you for 40%. Right. So not everyone knows that. Basically, Apex plays on 0.4% aim assist for controller, which means that it pulls pretty hard for you to help you aim on the controller. That said, though, controller is at an absolute disadvantage without aim assist versus a mouse and keyboard. Like, there is almost no world where a mouse and keyboard should lose to a controller player with 0 aim assist. That said, aim assist in a lot of ways is a legal cheat. So in a competitive environment, should that be allowed? I don't think you should also take away the competitive environment from the controller players. The way you got to run it is you just got to have them separate. You got to have here's your controller players and here's your mouse and keyboard players, and just treat it like it's different versions of sport, right? I don't think that's crazy, right? And you could have different ways that people look at it, right? Like, it becomes a more fair and balanced playing field. They can't run them separately in Apex because everyone competitive is swapped to controller now. But like, that doesn't mean they can't though. Because if they said tomorrow, hey, we're gonna split it, and if you want to play mouse and keyboard, here's for mouse and keyboard, and if you play controller, here's for here, I guarantee that there's a lot of the controller players that go, I like playing on mouse and keyboard way better, and so they could go there. It would kill the league though. Understandable. Honestly, I'm not saying it's a perfect solution that you can just make overnight. This is a hole that you've dug yourself into, right? Like, this isn't like oh, just do that and it's fixed. No, Apex, I mean, esports overall is not doing too hot. But where I want to take this argument isn't from just esport, it's to ranked and to in-game stuff. And I think that if you play in-game, if it detects that you've plugged in a controller, you should be in a lobby with controller players. And if you plug in a mouse and keyboard, you should be in a lobby with mouse and keyboard players. And that should go for both platforms. That means console players who want to use mouse and keyboard can play on mouse and keyboard versus PC mouse and keyboard players. But PC controller players can play against console controller players at the same time. That way you get both people playing whatever inputs they want. Mouse and keyboard players on console, who are currently zimming, which is cheating. Let's say they want to play on mouse and keyboard, but they don't have the money for a PC. They can still use their console to play on a mouse and keyboard and play against mouse and keyboard players on PC. And the reverse will happen with the controllers. That's the only way I could see like it being and working in the future. But then you have player population problems and queue time problems, and it's dug itself into a bit of a hole there. It's tough to say. It's tough to say, but either way though, hotly debated topic. I'm not saying it's a perfect answer, but if I was at the wheel of one of these decisions, that would probably be the way I would do it to make it the most competitive as possible. So yeah, I'm glad we don't have this problem in Overwatch. We have a lot of problems. We don't got this one. It's one of the only ones we don't have, and thank God for that. How would you play with friends that are console when you're mouse and keyboard? The same way you do in Overwatch. You play quick play with them, you would play arcade with them, you would play custom games with them. You just wouldn't be in ranked with them. Overwatch already does this, where if you play on a mouse and keyboard on PC, you play only against mouse and keyboard PC players. And if you're on console, you play against console players who are also on a controller. What I was expanding on was if you wanted to have mouse and keyboard players on a console play against mouse and keyboard players on a PC, you could open up the realm of possibility to do that to maybe alleviate queue times. But yeah, Apex can crossplay in rank 2. I understand that. That's why the point I was trying to make is I don't think there should be crossplay ranked in any game with a controller or a mouse and keyboard, because I don't want to take away controller from controller players, and I don't want to take mouse and keyboard away from mouse and keyboard players. What I'm saying is it's impossible to balance them. One will always be outdoing the other, and that's not fair. So keep them separate. That way both sets of players get to have fun. Easiest is to just reduce the amount of aim assist there is. But then you kill the controllers. Because they're gonna get f***ed. Real talk, like they would just be worse. They would just significantly suck more. Which in a game like Apex, you know, you're saying reduce it because like it's too strong. But then you have the little Timmies and Jimmies that come home from school, and big Timmies and big Jimmies who come home from work. They just want to sit on the couch and play some games. They're gonna get f***ing shit on, and they're gonna have a terrible time. And you can't have that happen to them either, right? You're talking strictly pro level at that point, where it's like, oh, then they come back down, and it's like, you would ruin their experience by a lot. And you can't do that, because like then they don't want to play the game anymore. And controller and console is massive in Apex. You have to have both, but you can't either of both of them. So the only way they can exist is to be in separate areas, you know? Currently, little Timmies and Jimmies are shitting on the good mouse and keyboard players with half the effort. Oh, 100. Oh, I'm not saying that should happen either. That's why I said. That's why I keep them separate, right? Like, I don't think there's a world where they can work together. So like when you say it's like realistically impossible, it's like, well, we kind of created the world we're in. We have to break it. We have to break the world we're in and like separate it. That's the only way to work.